Hope you all had a nice long weekend. If you'll come on in, have a seat, we'll get started. Good morning again. We'll go ahead and begin our meeting this morning, and we'll ask Leader Illustration to open us with a word of prayer.
Everybody hear me? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please pray with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity for us to all be together here today as we work on behalf of the people of the state of Georgia. Please be with each and every member of the House, each and every person who's in here, all of our families at home, constituents that we serve, and Georgians who come here to the state capitol, watch the legislative process in action. Thank you for this beautiful day, this opportunity for us to love and support each other and work to advance public policy that's best for the people of this great state. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Leader. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll hear from members who want to present. Come on up.
Is this? Oh, good.
Should be on. Mm-hmm.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I present House Bill 111 on behalf of the governor. It is on page 3, the very bottom, on the structured rule calendar. House Bill 111 will amend the schedule to cut our income tax rate, essentially going from 5.39% to 5.19% for tax year 2025. Again, that will amend the schedule that we had in House Bill 1437 that we passed in 2022. And this year we're accelerating that again to a 20 basis point. So initially we had set the schedule to get our income tax rate cut eventually down to 4.99% in the year 2029, but with this amended schedule, we will expect our income tax rate to go down to 4.99% rate by 2027.
Okay, thank you very much. Don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
What? I'm sorry. Wait a minute. We do have a question. Minority Whip Parks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you speak a little more as to the policy reason as to why we're accelerating the tax cut in light of the fact that we have not met all of the trigger mechanisms in, I think it was House Bill 437 that you mentioned that we passed a few years ago?
Correct. Thank you for the question. So House Bill 1437 outlined a schedule for a 10 basis point cut annually if we were to meet those fiscal success marker. So with this bill, we're essentially accelerating that schedule, and we still continue to have an outline of schedule that will go down 10 basis points if we were able to meet that fiscal success marker. So the fact that we're able to do this and the fact that we were able to do this last year as well is because we are able to meet all of our critical needs, all of our expenses, and still be able to cut the income tax rate by 20 basis points. And we've already, in our proposed spending and proposed budget, we've already put that 20 basis points in.
Thank you. One more question, if the gentlelady yields, or if I may. Is it not true that under this bill, it would essentially benefit the most wealthy Georgians? I think I saw analysis in which those making $700,000 or more a year would be receiving a $2,700 benefit, whereas those who are making around $70,000 to $80,000 a year would be receiving about a $70 tax benefit. Can you speak to? Yeah.
Mr. Whip, I disagree with you. These tax cuts will benefit all Georgians, including in the fact that, and I don't have that number specifically on here, but if you meet I believe $30,000 or less. If you're making $30,000 or less gross, then you will not be subject to any income tax cut as well. And we are not only helping Georgians by across the board cutting their income tax rate, but also helping small businesses with their corporate rate who are actually employing all of our Georgians as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Chairman Martin, is that you?
Yes, sir. General Lady Yield,
Yes.
isn't it true that this is a reduction for every Georgian that pays income tax?
That's correct.
Isn't it true that the percentage reduction that every Georgian that pays income tax gets is the same?
Exactly. Thank you.
Isn't it further true, to the gentleman's point earlier, that if folks are getting a larger decrease, that means they are paying more?
That's
currently. Also, to the gentleman's comment about the trigger, is it not true that the triggers are in place to happen automatically should the legislature not take action? That's not what's happening today. We know we're not artificial intelligence. Is it not true that the governor's on the ground and has done a conservative budget with revenue estimates that we can make, and that we as a state and a legislature can afford this 20 basis point cuts and do so early, and yet we're still putting the trigger in for future years?
That's correct. And
So-
we, again,
Is it not true that passing this bill is this legislature's intent to agree with the governor that Georgians deserve a tax break, and we're going to deliver that?
absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Was there a question here?
I wait.
Okay, all right, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Representative. And if you would, do what the leader did there. Tell us where it is on your blue sheet, because it's getting a little lengthy and it makes it easier for us to find it. So when you start to talk about your bill, just what page it's on and where it is, it'll be easier to locate. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. This is House Bill 262. It is found on page 3, about 5 up from the bottom. House Bill 262 would establish a grant for rural hospitals to correct an obvious problem that Hurricane Helene unveiled during its path of destruction through Georgia last September. The current required minimum generating capacity proved to be woefully insufficient during this time of widespread disaster. It's spelled out in the bill, the rural county, and it must have less than 100 beds. The hospital must have less than 100 beds with a population of less than 50,000 residents. There are potentially 30 hospitals that would fall in these 41 counties that the governor listed in his disaster declaration.
Okay. Don't see any questions. Thank you. Chairman Bonner.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. We've got several veteran-related bills to bring to you. The first is House Bill 53 on the first page, 6 down from the top. This is a bill that was brought to us by the Department of Veteran Services. This would expand the eligibility of certain veterans to be buried in our state veteran cemeteries. Currently, not everyone who serves is eligible. This would help to address that. Second bill is on page 2. It is third down from the top, House Bill 108, the Safeguarding American Veteran Empowerment Act, or the SAVE Act. This is the bill that is a result of a study committee that we did with our Senate counterpart over the interim. This bill will provide a framework and regulatory environment regarding companies that exist now and operate in Georgia that help veterans obtain their benefits. The end result of this will help our veterans obtain those benefits that much quicker and efficiently. And then the third dimension I've already presented is right under that, House Bill 110. That's just a bill that provides further protections to our service members by creating a state-level penalty for the pawnbroker industry if they do business with them.
Thank you, sir. Don't see any questions.
All right, thank you.
Chairman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee
Excuse
members.
me, you have a question? We'll get you in a minute. Just, y'all gotta be quicker. I can't see you on here before they get away. Just raise your hand or something. Okay, go ahead. Oh, there he is. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, not Mr. Speaker, to the gentleman.
We'll answer
On HB 108, there was some concern that the providers were not required to be certified by the VA. Can you speak to that?
Yes, thank you for the question. During our committee hearings in the interim, that was an issue that was brought up in terms of accreditation through the Veterans Administration. We don't believe that accreditation is something that is directly impacted by this bill, in as much as the companies that operate to assist veterans in compiling the information for their packets are not the ones that actually input those into the system. So they are still be required to utilize an accredited individual with the VA to actually input that information into the VA system, and then essentially from there it becomes kind of a case management type situation. So this does not impact that accreditation whatsoever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I bring House Bill 205 on page 3. It says about the middle under modified structured. House Bill 205 is a simple bill. It simply states that Georgia Emergency Management and Homeland Security Agency will put together an approved drone list that aligns with Federal Aviation Administration standards, also aligns with the Department of Defense, and will be compliant with the requirements of the Federal Defense Authorization Act that was passed by Congress. The approved list would go into effect in January 2028 to give time for the implementation. With that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Earhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I submit to you for your consideration HB 181, which is at the top of page 3. HB 881 removes a costly and duplicative step for in the foreign adoption process for Georgia families. This step is also often referred to as re-adoption. Essentially, how it affects Georgia families is currently when they adopt children from a foreign nation, and they go through the process of foreign adoption that is recognized at the state level, given a stamp of approval, and that child is then given a certificate of U.S. citizenship. When they bring that child back to Georgia, we are one of a handful of states that still require a readoption process, meaning they have to submit all of this documentation again to a court in order for their child to receive a certificate of foreign birth, essentially a foreign birth certificate. HB 181 eliminates that process, allows them to submit the same documentation to the Department of Vital Records to obtain that child's birth certificate. For some families, this cost of this extra step, it can be as much as $4,000 to $10,000. I'll yield for any questions.
Okay, I don't see any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair Lady Hagan, just 1 second. We've got a special guest in the back of the room who just snuck in here, and I just saw him from the other side of the building. Senator Brass, you want to come up and you got something you want to share with us this morning? No, sir, we want to treat you right because I know you're going to treat all our members right when we go over there.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to my colleagues in line, I'm sorry I didn't ask for it. So I will need your vote, though, which is why I didn't want to jump in front of them. But I actually have SB 16 as your last bill under modified structured on page 3, fourth from the bottom. This actually was a local issue for me. We had a lady get elected to the county commission, and in her training with ACCG, she learned that a bail bondsman cannot be an elected official in the state of Georgia with one exception, and that's to the Board of Education. And so what this bill does is it allows bail bondsmen we added the bail bondsman to that list of exceptions for county commission and city council, as long as they are not issuing bail bonds in that county. And this would allow her to run and actually be elected again if she should choose, which she is. They had to declare a vacancy, and she qualified, and that election is coming up, which is why I have requested to expedite this bill as quickly as possible, should it pass, so that if we can get it done before the actual election.
Thank you, sir. Don't see any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all.
Chair Lady Hagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I have for your consideration today House Bill 162. It is about 2/3 of the way down on page 2 of your blue sheets. Currently, when a first offender plea is accepted by a judge, the offender's court records are sealed at the successful completion of their sentence. But this bill would require that these records be sealed at sentencing. And it's needed because once these records are out on the internet, they never really go away, and the second chance that was intended doesn't happen in a lot of cases. So we're looking to correct that. You may remember this bill from last year. It did pass unanimously out of the House. We're giving it another go. It's been vetted by everybody that requested to be involved in it, and would be happy to answer questions, but ask for your consideration of this bill. Thank you.
Okay, don't see any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative, come on up. Columbia County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is on the blue sheet, number 8 down on the front page. This is HB 58, and this is respond to concern regarding operation of unmanned aircraft over certain gatherings. Currently, law enforcement lack the clear path for taking steps to intervene if drones are being flown in these situations. FAA regulation addresses operating drones over crowds. Challenges are for the law enforcement for providing anything that is outside of the regulation. And this is to address privacy and nuisance issues. And how we'll be doing that is we'll have a ticketed entertainment event for the purpose of creating a zone within which there will be a misdemeanor to operate a drone unless it meets one of the listed exceptions. In this, it puts the boundaries 400 feet outside of the perimeter. I'll be glad to answer any questions, and thank you.
Got a couple of questions
Yes,
for you,
sir.
Speaker
Yes,
Pro Tem.
Thank you, and thank you, Representative. You mentioned nuisance and privacy concerns. Does this only apply to ticketed events, or does it also apply to nuisance and privacy concerns of a private citizen that doesn't?
This only is for a ticketed event inside of a gated area or fence gated.
Thank you.
Okay, Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative, for the bill, and I understand the reason for it and what's behind it, but my curiosity is in a question, considering what happened in the Northeast, in New Jersey and all, with all the drones, how does your bill butt up against or interact with the FAA's, in my opinion, total jurisdiction of anything above our heads?
The FAA does have all of the regulations that are above in the fly zones, but also FAA has allowed also for Major League Baseball, NFL, Division I football, NASCAR, and sprint races. There are 3 nautical miles an hour before the event and an hour after the event. So this is something that is already being done.
Thank you.
Okay, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the bill. I think it might have been answered just then. I just want to make sure that if the sponsors of the event, will they be allowed? I didn't see it. Admittedly, I have not read the bill. Will they be allowed to use drones, like for video and for future purposes?
The sponsor of the event would be able to do that, and an employee of the event or utilities conducting official business or whatever going over.
Okay, that's all the questions. Thank you.
I appreciate y'all's consideration.
Yes, sir. Chairman Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring you 2 bills today. The first is a measure that passed the House and the Senate Senate got to the floor and never passed. House Bill 56, first page, about midway down. Mr. Chairman, this bill relates to the Georgia Public Safety Memorial Grant through the Georgia Student Finance Commission. We now provide free tuition to children of slain officers firefighters, paramedics, and prison guards. This bill simply adds spouses to this grant and allows them to go part-time because they are spouses. And this grant is in good fiscal situation. They have $4 million in reserves today, right now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we got a question.
Yes, sir.
Lady Hughley, is that yours?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. To the gentleman, I had wanted to offer us an amendment to add teachers to this list because of what we did the other day in adding teachers to the indemnification for people who were killed, and we're treating them now as first responders. So I would like for us to consider adding teachers to this list of people that we would take care of in this way.
Yes, ma'am, that would be whatever the will of this body would be. That is not something that was contemplated through committee to date, but certainly understand that recommendation and would not have a problem with that.
Okay.
It's all about line of duty.
You had another bill, too? Did you
Yes,
have
yes, sir,
another?
if you're ready. The next bill, second page, House Bill 117, Mr. Chairman, about a third of the way down. This bill very simply requires that menus and food service establishments in Georgia label shrimp if it is imported as such.
We have a question from somebody who knows a lot about shrimp. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this bill. We don't realize how much imports have hurt the shrimping and fishing community. They've put businesses that were generations old out of business. And I certainly like to know what I'm eating. You know, when I'm in a seafood restaurant, I want to know at least the water was clean that they caught the shrimp in.
Thank you to my co-sponsor, and yes, people have a right, and this bill is all about consumer transparency. Thank you, sir.
Well, we got one more question.
One more.
Representative Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this only shrimp or is this any fish?
It is currently only shrimp. It began as all seafood. It was changed in committee. It is now shrimp only.
Okay.
Shrimp is overwhelmingly the consumer choice for seafood in this country. And by the way, 94% of shrimp consumed in the United States is imported, sadly.
Okay, no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Monahan.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Today on the first page, two down, is H.R. 132. H.R. 132 establishes the Georgia, North Carolina, and Georgia-Tennessee Boundary Line Commission to address a long-standing dispute over Georgia's northern border. The 9-member commission, appointed by the governor, the president of the Senate, and the House Speaker, will conduct surveys, collaborate with Congress and neighboring states, and issue a final report before dissolving on December 1st, 2026.
Okay, we do have a question. Representative Chairlady Lynn Smith.
Against the other wall, this way. So thank you for your bill. When we are talking establishing borders, are you also referring to our rivers?
That's right. I think the impetus of this bill is to make sure that any natural resources that Georgia's entitled to, that it would have access to free and clear.
Okay. Don't see any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Gamble.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. On the very back page of 4, at the very bottom, House Resolution 42 is the ratification of the governor's suspension of motor fuel and diesel fuel taxes from Hurricane Helene last fall. It helped Georgians save approximately $140 to $160 million at the gas pump, and of course was done to help our citizens also as they dealt with the fallout of Hurricane Helene. We've done this before. We need to do this again. This is purely procedural, And so I want to ask for your support for House Resolution 42.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions.
I
Do you
have one other that I just will mention. I came last week, and that's House Bill 192, the governor's top state for talent bill. Just wanted to mention that one to you as well, but I've already presented. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. No questions. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you on the back page under structured rules, House Bill 112. House Bill 112 is an administrative bill that is a one-time tax credit for those that have paid your 2023 and 2024 taxes. The one-time tax credit will be $500 for joint filers, $375 for a head of household, and $250 for an individual filer.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you.
All right, second bill is on the second page under modified structure rule, kind of top of the page, HB 113. This too is an administrative bill. It's a bill that's a critical piece of legislation aimed at increasing the security of state purchasing processes, ensuring the protection of our state's infrastructure and citizens from growing cybersecurity risk. It directs the Georgia Technical Authority, our state's designated cybersecurity team, to establish and maintain an updated list of companies and products that are produced and sold by entities linked to foreign adversaries as defined by the United States through the Secretary of Commerce. This purpose also of this list is simple: to protect Georgia state agencies, businesses, and citizens from security risks that come with foreign-made technology that possess potential threats.
Okay, have a question for you. Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. I just want some clarification. When you prohibit, everything we buy is from one of the most prohibited countries we deal with, and that's China. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's going to only be companies that are owned by our foreign adversaries. There are a lot of United States companies that use other countries to produce the products, but it's only, the list comes from the federal government. They've designed who our foreign adversaries are, and the list that will be used by GTA to given to DOAS is only those that have been given to us by our federal government down to us. And this list also is going to be transparent to our citizens, so that they'll know who our foreign adversaries are and who we aren't purchasing for, and only deals with the state of Georgia. This bill does.
One follow-up, if I may. Thank you, sir, but I'm just kind of lost in my South Georgia moment. You're telling me that if I'm a prisoner and I'm walking around with stripes, everybody knows it, but if I change clothes, then I ain't guilty of nothing.
Well, GTA will continue to look and update this list for DOAS of where they can purchase items for Georgia. It's not going to be retroactive. We're not going back and getting rid of anything. This is for future purposes in the state of Georgia through DOAS.
Leader Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, to the gentleman, how much are we utilizing these countries on this list now? How much are we spending with these companies now?
Say it one more time, ma'am. Sorry.
The countries that you're saying we can no longer purchase from, how much are we currently spending with those entities, those countries?
I do not know numbers for how much we're purchasing. This is new legislation that we're going to be looking at these foreign adversaries, and in the future taking the list that's given to us by the federal government, and we will not be purchasing products through anybody that's on the foreign adversary list, purchasing that product from that company through DOAS.
So you can't tell us if we're purchasing any now?
I do not know, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you.
Also, one last bill right under that one, HB 116. It's an agency bill that I presented last week. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HB 143 is on the middle of page 2. It's the department bill. EPD has been working with farmers over the last year to try to craft some flexibility in our wonderful water metering program, and that is the result of this bill. It strengthens our water metering program that's vital for our southwest Georgia irrigation, the farmers. Actually, this bill saves the state millions of dollars as well as farmers millions of dollars in the compliance program. So I think they've struck a great way forward for this, complete this data and strengthen our data stream for our water metering program.
Okay, we've got a question over here. Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it not true? I'm over on the other wall, out the door, over here. So thank you so much for this bill, but also, is it not true that this process has been perfected for the last 20-plus years, and I commend all the agencies and the legislators who've worked on it. Thank you.
Thank you for your work for many years getting us to this point with this program.
Okay, don't see any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Gaines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's House Bill 246, which is middle on page 3. This should be fairly familiar to everybody. We've seen it in the House and the Senate, just never gotten over the finish line. But what this bill does ensures that sheriffs have the qualifications at the time of qualifying is the same they'll have to have within 6 months of service. And one of the issues that has actually come up legally is in Macon County, where this has become a challenge. Now they're having all sorts of legal issues because the sheriff who got elected can't get those qualifications within 6 months, so the office is having to be vacated. So this would ensure at the time of qualifying to have those have that training already done.
Okay, got a question. Pro Tem.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair, I had a question. So current law is that if you are not a certified peace officer at the time of election, you have 6 months
That's
to,
right.
and you mentioned Macon. How many persons have, who were elected sheriff in the last 20 years have been unable to complete their certification within 6 months?
I know this one is currently ongoing. I don't know the other specific ones, but I will tell you it's been very few people who have, less than 3 or 4 that have ever been elected that aren't a peace officer at the time of election.
So it has not been a particular problem other than we currently have an issue. And when you say illegal, I think they would just have to vacate the office. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they'll have to vacate the office. In this case, it was a peace officer who had his certification revoked because it was a school resource officer who had assaulted a student, was elected, and he had his certification revoked. He can't get certified, so that office will have to be vacated. In fact, the election board was undecided whether to even allow him on the ballot. Went back and forth. They ended up having him on the ballot. Now he's had to be removed from office, and the person who didn't win the seat is actually serving as sheriff. It's kind of a mess.
So you could have chosen to make the bill that if you had it revoked for cause and not changed it, that you had to be a peace officer at the time of election. Is that correct?
And this does capture that. The other thing I'll mention is, anybody, because I think this is really important, anybody free of charge or technical schools can go and get the training before the time of qualifying. And generally, let's say you want to run if qualifying is in March, you could go January, February, go get the training, then you could sign up to run in March. So this doesn't prohibit anybody, even if you're not a peace officer today, if you want to run for sheriff, I think it's really important to note that you can go get the training so you can qualify.
So is this different from the bill we've seen in the past where the problem was you couldn't get the training because you were so low on the list?
That's right. So my understanding is that this would solve that issue where you can go and get the training again any time that you want, as long as you have to plan out a little bit, so you do it before qualifying. But that's my understanding.
So are you saying all technical schools offer this?
Not all technical schools, but also, like just for an example, in Columbia County, because this is one I'm familiar with, because it was shared with me. Like they have 4 different trainings throughout the year, and that's just one example. But throughout the state, there are multiple opportunities to get the training.
So in the past,
Okay.
I guess I would like to talk with you offline
Sure.
because the previous bill, my understanding was you had to actually sign up at the training facility in Forsyth. And
That's one option. It's not the only option
You couldn't get on
now.
the list because it was
Sure.
priority was given to those who were elected or who worked for a sheriff. And and that was a concern that many of
Sure.
us had. But I'd like to know how many opportunities there are, because otherwise this has been viewed as the incumbent Sheriff Protection Act in the past, but maybe you've changed it so that it's more open.
I think we've addressed that issue, but I'd be happy to get some more information on how many trainings are available. But I understand that concern. That was something we talked about a lot over the interim, was how to make sure that anybody who wants to run for sheriff, they can go get that training. You know, some people aren't eligible to get the training. They would never be eligible. That's not going to change. But as long as someone is able to get the training, I want to make sure that they can. They just need to get it by qualifying so that the office doesn't become vacated.
Okay, that's all the questions I see. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Ridley.
Today I have House Bill 163. It's pretty short and just 2 pages. The purpose of this bill is for restaurants, if they're selling cell-cultured meat, lab-grown meat, they have to label it as such and disclose it on the menu.
Okay. Don't see any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any members of the committee want to make a request? Okay, we've got several lights blinking, so if you want to ask a question, raise your hand so I can recognize you so we can ask a question. We'll go ahead. Chairlady Cooper, you have a request?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 177, it's the last one on page 2. It is to add pets, household pets, to both family violence and dating violence protective orders. It is becoming much more frequent that people who don't want somebody to leave a relationship will threaten the pets to either take them away, harm them. They do it in front of the children. And just last week, this was occurring in a dating violence situation, and the guy killed the woman's dog in front of her. It's very traumatic. So this allows judges to add them to temporary protective orders. Thank you.
Okay. Don't see any questions. Wait just a minute. Yeah. Did you have another bill, 91?
Yes, sir, I did. Seems like I've gone from humans to vets, but House Bill 91, it allows for licensures of vets from foreign colleges or schools of veterinary medicine who are board certified in a specialty. Believe it or not, we now have board certified dermatologist vets, cardiologists, orthopedists. We are very short of this type of vets in the state of Georgia, and of course they have to be certified by one of our American boards and to have met all the requirements. And honestly, most of them do. This is sort of like a residency, and most of them have done the residency in the United States.
Okay. No questions on that. Chairman Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 197 on page 3. This is a bill that deals with the peer-to-peer calls when an insurer inquires about the medical necessity of a procedure. They will make a call to the provider. If that provider cannot come to the phone while they're treating patients, then that phone call is diverted to the next week, to the following week, the week after that. This bill speaks to an appropriate and a agreed upon time with the insurer and the provider so that there's no delay in treatment. Also speaks to using a public website, which I've checked with Legislative Council. Public website is one that can be secured so no one can see your medical information. They can also use that to communicate. This will reduce time for patients to wait to have received care.
Okay, don't see any questions. Thank you, sir. Dean Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I bring you House Bill 73, which is for Seminole County, their Board of Education. It's to provide nonpartisan elections.
Okay, don't see any questions. Chairlady Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring you House Bill 173. This is a bill that will provide the Department of Education to make sure all parents get information starting in the 7th through the 12th grade on possible vaccinations. In particular concern is the HPV cancer causing. The cancer folks want that information out. There are no requirements. It is just information only. It's no mandates. Thank you.
Okay, no questions. Chairman Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring to the committee on page 3, House Bill 247. House Bill 247 is a bill that we're doing for the DUI schools and the risk and the driver improvement schools. Before, I know for 36 years plus, this legislature in the state has always had a great amount of concern for DUIs, people who are driving impaired. There's a fine process, but the other process that this legislature before I was elected and since has always been very cautious to take care of these schools to be sure that they're in a good standing, both financially, so that there's no hinky stuff like selling of certificates and things like that. Before you today is a bill that what we're saying in here is that on line 35, that the $95 fee that's charged by driver improvement clinics goes from $95 to $125. My understanding that has not been raised in over 12 to 15 years by the legislature. At the top of that page, we're just putting housekeeping legislation in there to say that in the case of a DUI, that information has to be signed off by the offender so that information can be sent to the Department of Offender Services. On line 52, the same issue is basically to say that it's never been said with the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities that they train them to be sure that these folks who are doing the DUI evaluation, that they actually know what they're doing when it comes to drugs and alcohol. For that, we're raising the price of the DUI schools from $235 to $350, something that these schools have not had in a number of years, a decade more. And one of the things is an example I can give you that we were told that in one of the counties, DeKalb County, a few years ago, they had 22 DUI schools, and they're down to 8 DUI schools now. And we also are raising the DUI risk reduction program assessment fees from $100 to $150. Out of that $150, out of the $100 right now, the departments get $30 of that to post those assessment fees and all. Now, I would bring note that I didn't know until I came in this morning that there's been a minority report that has been filed with this, and I'd be remiss if I didn't address this. They specifically cite 3 sections on lines 17 and 18. They cite written consent. Well, my understanding is that is housekeeping to that offender, once that offender has been assessed, that to transfer their records over to the State Department, they need to have permission, and I'm sure that has something to do with the healthcare stuff that deals with that. They also cited on lines 52 and 53, the part that I'd spoke about a minute ago about the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities with training for alcohol and drug evaluation, that those people that are doing this assessment, that they're qualified to do that, something that I think is absolutely a necessity. And then last but not least, they address on the lines 61 to 63, the fee for intervention component shall be authorized, but shall include the cost associated with transfer of the documents. That would also fall within that $150. So I've addressed those minority concerns, and at my own behest, I will be glad to meet with Minority Caucus to explain those to them if it's not easily explained any other way.
Okay, we have a question. Lydia Hughley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the author of the bill, my question is based on the changes in the fees or the rates. What are those based on? And I ask that because anytime we put costs in legislation, that means we're going to have to come back at some point in the future. So what are these costs based on, and how long are they going to be good?
These costs are based on the economy, the fact that they have not been increased in probably 12 to 15 years, as I understand, that a lot of these schools are going out of business today. An example that I can give that I know of one of the school owners that teaches a risk reduction school. He was involved in the flood of the storm down at Helena. His building was destroyed. He may not open back up. So if we're going to have these laws on the books, and it's always been the forbearance of this legislature, that these folks deserve to make a living if we're going to have these programs. If we're not going to have the programs, then we just need to do away with them in its entirety. One of the reasons, again, that we have always, and to answer the second part, the legislature has always decided to set the fees. This didn't just happen yesterday. I know it's been there 36 years because I've been here fooling with this stuff since then. So it's probably our predecessors of 40 or 50 years ago realized the importance that these schools, and what I was always trained in was that these schools, you want to be sure that there's a certain fee that they can charge, because you do not want the day coming that they're selling these certificates. If somebody has a DUI and they're required to go to a school, then they're required to go to the school, and it should be an accurate school to try to change their behavior of drunk driving.
Okay. Chairman Blackman.
Did that work? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just like to ask for HB 92, we do have a substitute on the desk, and after circling up with Ledge Council, this is a technical update to the extension period, and that would run through March 31st of 2025 for the opt-in, opt-out. This is the cleanup to House Bill 581, preserves all the components of it, but does adjust that extension.
Okay, you've heard that. This is a technical change as a rule substitute. Is there a motion to pass this rule substitute? Have a motion and second. Any opposition? Okay, we've passed the substitute. Now, before we set the calendar, I'd like to take care of one little bit of housekeeping here. I'd like to hear a motion that we recommit House Bill 172 back to the Committee on Higher Education. Okay, we have a move and second. Any opposition? It's back in higher education. Now, we'll set the calendar for today, Tuesday. House Bill 92 by rule substitute. Have a move and a second. Any opposition? It's on for today. House Bill 223.
Move.
Okay. Ms. Whip, you want to present that first before we vote on it? Got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 223 is a straightforward bill that addresses the impact of Hurricane Helene on agriculture. It addresses these issues using similar language that was used by the General Assembly in 2018 for Hurricane Michael. It does three simple things. It exempts disaster relief payments and crop insurance from state income tax. It allows for timber producers to receive credit for damaged trees to allow for them to replant or reforest. And third, it exempts building materials until the end of this year for those that are rebuilding or replacing livestock shelters such as poultry houses. And that's what the bill does, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, you've heard the explanation of the bill. Is there a move that this be put on for today? Have a motion and second. Any opposition? It's on. One more. House Resolution 42. Have a move and second. Any opposition to that? It's on. Okay, that will be the calendar for today. House Bill 92 by substitute, House Bill 223, House Resolution 42. Okay, now since you had a long weekend, we got to put a few things on for tomorrow too. For tomorrow, modified structured House Bill 38. Have a move and a second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 117. Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 148. Moved and second. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 162. Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. House Bill 177. Moved and seconded. Any opposition? It's on. Okay, again for Wednesday, House Bill 38, House Bill 117, House Bill 148, House Bill 162, House Bill 177. Thank you very much. We're adjourned.